A very good morning to all of you. I welcome you all to Ansar Kari. So, in this video, we'll be analyzing different newspapers from the perspective of the civil services examination as per the importance of different articles in the context of the syllabus. So, we'll be analyzing the newspapers for 15th of March 2023, and we'll be looking into topics like banks from 18 nations, they can now trade in rupee. So basically we have also talked about internationalization of rupee, what steps are being taken, and then promoting rupee based trade. So this is, we have discussed in the context of trade between India and Russia. Apart from that, we yesterday also we looked into this thing, that Saudi Iranian normalization and what are the challenges. So we have done this topic in detail. Again, we'll take this up today and cover the missing things. And apart from that, let's start. So Supreme Court is now going to hear the Telangana's appeal against the governor. So obviously this topic is also in news. Everything related to governor becomes important from the perspective of the examination. And several bills that have been passed by the state legislature, they are stuck as governor is yet to act on them. So because of this, there is a tussle between the government of different states and their respective governors, which is leading to a constitutional impasse, says the State Government's Council, and court agrees to take up this case on 20th of March. Then what the Telangana government has to say in the Supreme Court in their petition. So they say that in a parliamentary democracy, here the keyword is parliamentary democracy. So you need to be clear with the meaning of what is a parliamentary democracy. So here we are seeing that governor has no discretion to delay necessary assent as required on the bills. Any refusal on the part of the governor, including the delay, will defeat the parliamentary democracy and will of the people. So very strong statement. And as I told you that we need to be clear with the meaning of parliamentary democracy, and all the powers and all the important articles mentioned in the Constitution of India relating to and talking about the governor becomes very important. Moving forward, so USA says that a Russian fighter hits the American drone. So as we know that USA, or we can say that the Western world, the NATO is supporting Ukraine in the Russia-Ukraine war. And in a way, we can say that this is an example of proxy war where USA and the Western countries, they are not directly into this war, but proxy, they are acting as a proxy in terms of, providing financial aid or providing weapons. So that's how we can say that this is a proxy war going on. So the Russian fighter jet, it struck the propeller of a US surveillance drone over the Black Sea. So apart from this war and what are the, we can say, changing geopolitical relations between different countries, the geography of this region also becomes very important. What are the water bodies and which all countries are like having a border with them? All this is very important because such types of questions are asked in UPSC examination. So here, as we can see, there is mention of Black Sea. So you need to open your atlases and find out which all countries they share their border with Black Sea. So this caused American forces to bring down the unmanned aerial vehicle in the international waters, and the US military said that an incident that highlighted soaring US-Russia tensions over the Moscow's war in Ukraine. So we know that even sanctions have been imposed upon Russia. So that is also one thing when we talk about. So obviously tensions between USA and Russia, USA and China, all are intense. So Maharashtra extends the flagship health scheme to the disputed border villages. So the decades-old dispute had flared up last year after the leaders of both the states, basically we're talking about the states of Karnataka and Maharashtra, they issued statements asserting their intention to secure the contentious areas. And one of them is Belagavi, which has been in news for a lot of days. So this is one area of dispute. So here, what becomes important is that which all states are having disputes, be it regarding sharing of river water or even the land territory. So Amritsar is ready for G20 meet on education and labor. So you can see that we are having G20 meetings at different places which are importance, which are having some historical importance or importance from the heritage or cultural perspective, from tourism perspective. So next up we have it in Amritsar. So Punjab is fully geared up to the G20 meet, set to begin on Wednesday, and all arrangements, including those related to the security, they have been put in place. Apart from that, here we'll be focusing on the meeting on education and labor. So let's see what is going to be the output and outcome of it. So more young people, they are able to code in South India as per a survey. So National Sample Survey Office, which is under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, has conducted the study. So that is one takeaway, nothing much important for us. So Noida Airport on course to start the test flights from mid-2024. So we've been focusing upon the capital expenditure. And here in the context of airports, we have seen that a number of airports have been opened, they've constructed across India. So here you can see that the construction work is in full swing at the upcoming Noida International Airport at Jewar in Uttar Pradesh. So Saudi Iranian normalization and the challenges in West Asia. So yesterday what we saw is that USA has deprioritized that area and it has basically withdrawn from the West Asian countries, but still obviously it would want that its influence does not subside in Western Asia. But at the same time, because of this opportunity, China is coming to the forefront. It is trying to increase its role, and that's where it has brokered a deal of normalization of ties between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And apart from that, what US wanted was completely different. It wanted Saudi Arabia and Israel to club together against Iran. But that's how things did not happen. And here we are seeing Saudi Arabia and Iran, they're normalizing their ties, and this was brokered by China. So China's role is now increasing even in Western Asia also. So we are having threat from this also. And yesterday we talked about what are the changing relations when it comes to geopolitical relations even in Western Asia, and changing global order also. So we talked about economically and even geopolitically and even strategically how it is important and what are the challenges from this thing. So China brokered this deal. It affirms Beijing's role in Western Asia affairs, and this poses new challenges for Indian diplomacy in the region. So, what is China's new approach in West Asia? So, about 2 years ago, the Chinese academics, they began to signal changes in this approach. They indicated that China was looking at greater political involvement with the region on the basis of quasi-mediation diplomacy. So, this is a keyword. This is the key term, as we have China's debt policy. So, this is the new emerging term, that is quasi-mediation diplomacy, to promote its broad commercial, diplomatic, and political interests rather than its hard security concerns. So their approach towards West Asia is completely different towards their approach in Indo-Pacific region, in South China Sea. So it is quasi-mediation diplomacy to promote their commercial, diplomatic, and political interest. So it recognized that many of the ongoing rivalries would not admit of quick resolutions, and China was prepared to be content with managing these differences through diplomacy so that they did not escalate into conflict. And apart from that, talking about the diplomatic challenges, so the regional security also needs the revival of nuclear agreement, which was basically earlier there was a joint comprehensive plan of action, and which was obviously USA, when USA withdrew from it. So obviously this came to an halt. So we need a revival of nuclear agreement for this region. And this needs to be linked with it. So the management of the Israel's aggressiveness needs to be linked with it. And soon after, the International Atomic Energy Agency, it has announced that it had seen traces of uranium enrichment by Iran to 84%, which is just short of the weapons grade. So the International Atomic Energy Agency's Director General, he visited Tehran in early March and obtained an Iranian agreement to allow verification and monitoring activities by the International Atomic Energy Agency's inspectors. So that is one thing, that obviously Iran has been enriching its uranium up to a weapons grade so that it can have nuclear weapons. So that is also going to be a big challenge or deterrent to this region and to the security as well. So here we also need to know about the International Atomic Energy Agency, whether it is a specialized agency of United Nations or not, and all other important details of it. So this has prepared the ground for even renewed talks on the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, though doubts remain on whether US's sharply polarized domestic scene will allow such an agreement, which would dilute sanctions on Iran in the run-up to the American presidential elections. So that is the case. And right now we know that even sanctions have been imposed on Iran as well. So Iran's domestic politics is also like, it is deeply polarized and it is dominated by the extreme right wing. So it is also expected to obstruct the renewal of the JCPOA and maintain a hostile posture towards Iran. So those serious problems remain with this accord. So China has affirmed that its role in Western Asian affairs is likely to get more active and substantial. So this poses challenges for Indian diplomacy as well. However, recognizing that the management of the ties with China remains its diplomatic priority, India will need to engage with China in West Asia, where they have a broad gamut of shared interest in energy security, free and open sea lanes, logistical connectivity, and above all, regional stability of this region is very important. So here they can work together to further mutual and regional interests. So that's how China and India, they can come together and work for the stability of this region. And we have talked about different heads, be it energy sector, free and open sea lanes, logistics, connectivity, and regional stability. So as we say that there is judicial activism, so legislative inaction on the social issues will legitimize judicial intervention. So the Supreme Court's decision to refer to a constitution bench the issue of granting legal recognition to the same-sex marriages can be seen as an important step towards ensuring gender equality, despite apprehension that it is encroaching on the legislative domain. So yesterday also we saw this thing कि we can say कि Supreme Court अगर इस चीज में intervene कर रहा है, which is basically the in the hands of the legislature. But if legislature will not work, अगर legislature ऐसा कोई law नहीं लेके आएगा, तो Supreme Court को intervene करना पड़ेगा in and specifically in relation to legalization of the same-sex marriages. It is important and it is a step towards ensuring gender equality. And we know कि homosexuality has already been decriminalized by the Supreme Court. So here, the next step is legalization of the same-sex marriages. So petitioners before the court view the idea of giving of a legal status for the marriages between the people belonging to the same sex as a natural consequence of the 2018 judgment, as I just told you, which decriminalized the homosexuality. So here the Special Marriages Act also becomes very important. You need to be clear with what are the like different features of the Special Marriage Act in context of other religious acts that we have. So here you can see a mention of Special Marriage Act 1954 has been made, and this permits basically marital unions between same-sex couples. This should be allowed. This is what is being asked for under this act. And So the Special Marriage Act of 1954, it allows the solemnization of marriage between any two persons and is used by those who are unable to register their marriages under their respective personal laws. So be it the Hindu Marriage Act or the related to, we have Muslims or Muslim law related to marriage. If they are unable to register their marriages under their personal laws, so they can go ahead with their marriages under the Special Marriage Act. But definitely there are some conditions which are mentioned, and you need to find out more about that. So the Union government has argued that the decriminalization of the consensual relations between the adults of the same sex has removed the stigma attached to homosexuality, but it has not it has not conferred the right of marriage. सो यूनियन गवर्नमेंट का कहना ये है कि जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट की जजमेंट आई इन 2018 ऑफ डीक्रिमिनलाइजिंग द होमोसेक्सुअलिटी, सो जो स्टिग्मा अटैच था उसको कम करने में डेफिनेटली इस जजमेंट ने हेल्प किया है, बट एट द सेम टाइम उस जजमेंट ने राइट ऑफ मैरिज को लीगलाइज नहीं किया है बिटवीन सेम सेक्स कपल्स. So this is what Union government has to say, and that the state is entitled to limit its recognition to marriages involving heterosexual couples. So state is entitled to limit. State के पास power है. So there is no discrimination, it claims, in keeping the same-sex couples out of the definition of marriage. So this is government is saying कि इसका अगर हम we are saying कि सेम सेक्स कपल्स को वी आर कीपिंग आउट ऑफ द डेफिनेशन ऑफ मैरिज, सो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि वी आर डिस्क्रिमिनेटिंग विद देम. दिस इज व्हाट द यूनियन गवर्नमेंट इज क्लेमिंग. So in terms of the equality norm, the central question is not very complicated. So जब हम gender equality की बात करते हैं, so the जो main question की हम बात कर रहे हैं, that is, it can be recognized that no civil right available to the married heterosexual couples ought to be denied to those who belong to the same gender. And the incidental consequences on the issues of the property and succession may not pose insurmountable difficulties. And center's argument is that other argument is that invoking the religious norms and cultural values against recognizing the same-sex marriage is weak and that is inadequate. So, जब आप बात करते हो लीगलाइजेशन ऑफ होमोसेक्सुअल मैरिजेस, सो आप ये आर्ग्यू नहीं कर सकते हो कि ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ रिलीजियस नॉर्म्स एंड कल्चरल वैल्यूज यू कैन नॉट लीगलाइज दैट मैरिज. सो इट इज फ्यूटाइल टू आर्ग्यू दैट इट विल अंडरमाइन द फेथ और रॉक द सोसाइटल वैल्यूज. सो आप ये भी नहीं बोल सकते हो कि अगर आप होमोसेक्सुअल मैरिजेस लीगलाइज कर दोगे तो उसकी वजह से सोसाइटल वैल्यूज को कुछ हार्म होगा या उनका कुछ वायलेशन होगा. यू कांट से दैट. And the mere fact that many people consider marriage to be a sacrament or a holy union is not enough to deny again equal status to the union of the people of the same sex or to undermine its essential character as a social and economic contract. So that is another thing कि आप ये सारी arguments pose नहीं कर सकते हो against legalization of the homosexual marriages. So whether the remedy ought to take the form of recognition of same-sex marriages, and if so, whether it should be through a judicial intervention or a legislative action is the question. So यहाँ पे again we are talking about judicial overreach. क्या judiciary को intervene करना चाहिए in legalizing these marriages या फिर legislature को एक law लेके आना चाहिए on this thing. So main question ये है, and the legislature should be involved in bringing about far-reaching changes that may impact the personal laws of all the religions is indeed an acceptable proposition. So acceptable चीज यही होगी कि legislature का intervention होना चाहिए, legislature को law बनाना चाहिए, and a responsive government that wants to treat this as a matter of policy and not cede space to the courts would act on its own to consider the right of any two people regardless of gender to marry or found a family. So legislative inaction on burning social issues will legitimize and invite judicial intervention. So this is what we started with this article. So what are India's immediate growth prospects? So as per the National Statistical Office, on 20th Feb 2023, they released a set of new numbers which was pertaining to the annual and quarterly national income for different time periods. And this new data set, it provides an opportunity to make a final assessment of COVID-19's adverse impact on India's GDP growth. So let's see कि इस रिपोर्ट का क्या कहना है रिगार्डिंग कि फाइनली इंडिया के ऊपर कोविड-19 की वजह से क्या एडवर्स इम्पैक्ट हुआ इन टर्म्स ऑफ आवर जीडीपी ग्रोथ. सो रिकवरी सिंस प्री कोविड ईयर एंड टॉकिंग अबाउट फर्स्टली रिकवरी, comparing it with the data that we had for pre-COVID times and obviously post-COVID times में क्या हम recover कर चुके हैं या नहीं. So as per the NSO's second advance estimates, India suffered a contraction of 5.7% in 2020-21, which is much lower than its first advance estimates at 7.7%. सो पहले इट वाज बीइंग एस्टिमेटेड कि 2020-21 की जीडीपी ग्रोथ की बात करें तो as per the first advance estimates, it was estimated at around -7.7%, and now as per the second advance estimates, it is showing that it is -5.7%. So this revision, the three sectors, they were benefited the most. They were manufacturing, construction, and financial real estate. So these were the sectors that were most benefited. जब हम second advance estimates की बात करें कि इनमें जब figures revise की गई तो it was not that bad. So real GDP during the COVID-19 year, it amounted to rupees 136.9 lakh crore rupees, which was higher than 134.4 lakh crore, which was assessed earlier. So this is the GDP figure COVID-19 की year की. This is real GDP. So we are taking into account even the inflation. So real GDP आप कैसे calculate करोगे? Formula is real GDP is equal to nominal GDP minus inflation. So आपको real GDP की figure से true picture पता चलती है जब आप inflation का impact भी हटा देते हो. So since then we are seeing कि GDP has grown by 9.1% 2021-22 में and 7% in 2022-23. This is for like an estimate. अगर हम current financial year की बात कर रहे हैं 7%, but इससे पिछले साल में that is 2021-22 में it grew at 9.1%. So that is in positive. And जब भी हम यहाँ पे नेगेटिव जीडीपी की बात कर रहे हैं तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि जीडीपी नेगेटिव मतलब कि वी कांट से कि नेगेटिव प्रोडक्शन हो रहा है, वो उस चीज को तो वी कांट डिफाइन इटसेल्फ. सो नेगेटिव जीडीपी का मतलब है जब भी हम जीडीपी की फिगर्स किसी भी पिछले साल से या किसी पिछले क्वार्टर से कंपेयर करते हैं तो उसके कॉन्टेक्स्ट में नेगेटिव फिगर आती है कि पिछले क्वार्टर के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में या पिछले फाइनेंशियल ईयर के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में जीडीपी उस साल से कंपेयर करें तो इस फाइनेंशियल ईयर में कम ग्रो हुई है बाय -7.7%. ये बेसिकली कॉन्टेक्स्ट होता है या फिर सिग्निफिकेंस है कि आप कैसे बोल रहे हो कि नेगेटिव जीडीपी ग्रोथ हुई है. सो मूविंग फॉरवर्ड, सेक्टर वाइज अगर हम देखें, while the overall gross value added in 2022-23 that is higher by 11.3%. So gross value added current financial year में increase हुई है by 11.3% as compared to 2019-20. So one sector is mining and quarrying. It still shows a contraction of 0.3%. So except this, बाकी हमारी gross value added grow हुई है in the current financial year. Trade, hotels, transport, ये सब शो कर रहा है कि there was a weak growth of 4.3%. So ये सेक्टर इतना अच्छे से ग्रो नहीं हो पाया है एंड इस सेक्टर पे ऑब्वियसली कोविड-19 का भी इम्पैक्ट पड़ा है जब धीरे धीरे चीजें स्टार्ट हुई रिवाइव करना. सो ग्रोथ इज वेरी लेस and sectors which are showing higher than average increase. So it includes construction sector, manufacturing, financial real estate, agriculture. So इन sectors में बहुत अच्छे से या फिर higher than average amount of growth हमने record करी है. And from the point of view of aggregate expenditure, overall increase in real GDP is 10% with the government final consumption expenditure growing at 7.4%. So this is the government's total expenditure. जब भी हम economics में aggregate demand या total output या real GDP की value calculate करते हैं तो we have that formula that aggregate demand is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. So यहाँ पे G that is government expenditure वो रिकॉर्ड हुआ या वो ग्रो हुआ by 7.4%, तो उसको हम बोलते हैं गवर्नमेंट्स फाइनल कंजम्पशन एक्सपेंडिचर. And gross fixed capital formation, so this is investment, and then private final consumption expenditure, so इनको हम अगर plus करेंगे so we'll get the investment, so that showed an increase of 17.7% and 13% respectively. And corresponding real investment rate were 34% and 31.8% respectively. So 34% was it was for the period 2022-23. So current financial year में it was at 34% and 2019-20 में it was 31.8%. So we can say कि real investment increase हुई है after COVID-19. And the difference in the real and nominal rates is due to the differential inflation rates of the capital goods vis-a-vis the overall GDP. So obviously अगर आप nominal GDP में से real GDP को minus करोगे तो आपको inflation rate मिलेगा, because formula क्या होता है, real GDP is equal to nominal GDP minus inflation. So that is there, and we can say that in real terms there is more improvement in the investment rate. Obviously we can see this thing also, यहाँ से भी हमें पता लग रहा है 31.8% से 34% investment rate increase हुआ है. And talking about the estimated incremental capital output ratio, it was at 8.5 COVID-19 के time पे, and right now it is 4.9 in 2022-23. So this is because 2019-20 GDP growth rate, it was rather low at 3.7%, reflecting considerable unutilized capacity. So obviously lockdowns की वजह से there was unutilized capacity during COVID-19, and so average capacity utilization ratio in the manufacturing sector was only 70% during COVID-19, and this is fallen from 75%. उससे पिछले साल से अगर हम compare करें 2018-19, obviously COVID-19 की वजह से utilization of capacity कम ही हुआ है. And in the first half of 2022-23, the capacity utilization ratio, it is higher at 73.5%. So obviously जब economy वापस track पे आ गई, we started recovering out, and factories they started opening up, manufacturing units they started working again. तो जो capacity utilization था obviously वो ratio भी increase हुआ है, and that is right now at 73.5%. And credit growth की अगर हम बात करें, so it was also high at 16.1% in the week ending Feb 10, 2023, and monthly credit data, it indicates कि a high credit growth only with respect to personal loans. So personal loans में हम high credit growth देख रहे हैं, and industrial credit growth was at 7-month low. So right now industrial credit इतना grow नहीं कर रहा है. So obviously अगर industrial credit आगे और slow down होता जाएगा, so in terms of manufacturing we can expect कि आगे slow down हो सकता है. So talking about implications for growth, so given the anticipated global economic slowdown, India's 2023-24 growth is likely to remain lower than the growth rate of its preceding year of 7%. So this is one thing that we are expecting, and obviously things are not for sure कि अभी हम बोल सकते हैं, वो तो एक बार पूरा जब we have the estimate आने वाले time period के लिए, then only we can be sure about this thing. But right now जैसे globally we are seeing कि economic slowdown हो रहा है, जो exports या goods and services की demands है that is slowing down, so उसकी वजह से हमारे exports पे भी impact हो रहा है. So उसकी वजह से we are expecting कि 2023-24 देखिए आने वाला financial year है, उसमें we are expecting to कि जो GDP growth होगी वो अभी जो financial year चल रहा है उससे कम ही होगी. And the RBI has also projected कि growth around 6.4% हो सकती है for the upcoming financial year. सो डिफरेंट एस्टिमेट्स है हमारे लिए अभी के लिए, ऑब्वियसली एस्टिमेट्स हैं, वो एक्चुअल फिगर्स नहीं है. So if fiscal stimulus is continued injected largely through the capital expenditure as envisaged in 2023 union budget, we may move closer to the RBI's growth estimate. So अगर जो अभी हमारे current union budget में जो promise किया गया regarding the या जो अनाउंसमेंट की गई रिगार्डिंग द कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर, अगर वी आर एबल टू इम्प्लीमेंट द प्रोजेक्ट्स इफेक्टिवली एंड चीज़ें एक्चुअलाइज होने लग जाएंगी, क्योंकि जब हम कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर की बात कर रहे हैं तो वी ऑल्सो टॉक अबाउट द मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट दैट कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर क्रिएट्स, चाहे वो जॉब क्रिएशन में हो. एंड जॉब क्रिएशन की वजह से ऑब्वियसली एक पूरी साइकिल स्टार्ट हो जाती है, वर्चुअस साइकिल, कि अगर आपको लाइक जॉब्स ज्यादा क्रिएट होंगी, ज्यादा लोग एम्प्लॉय होंगे, उनकी इनकम इंक्रीज होगी, इनकम की वजह से वो कंजम्पशन डिमांड करेंगे, कंजम्पशन डिमांड करेंगे तो ऑब्वियसली फैक्ट्रीज को अपना आउटपुट और मैन्युफैक्चर और इंक्रीज करना पड़ेगा. तो ऐसे ही साइकिल वर्क करने लग जाएगी. एंड अगर जैसे कि मैंने बोला, इफ वी आर एक्चुअली एबल टू एक्चुअलाइज एंड इफेक्टिवली इम्प्लीमेंट द कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर इन डिफरेंट प्रोजेक्ट्स, तो वी आर एक्सपेक्टिंग कि जो आरबीआई का ग्रोथ एस्टिमेट था 6.4%, हम उसको अचीव करने में सक्सेसफुल हो जाएंगे. But we are at the same time, we also having elections around the corner, general elections next year. So this may be pressure to increase the revenue. There may be pressure to increase the revenue expenditure also. But revenue expenditure की वजह से growth के ऊपर कोई impact नहीं होता है. And this might lead to a growth rate closer to 6%. So एक ये scenario भी possible है. So any stimulus for the growth should be undertaken while adhering to the fiscal consolidation roadmap at the same time, so as to keep India's medium-term story intact. So fiscal consolidation, it is very important. आप अपने fiscal deficit को, we can't let it grow too much. And अगर गवर्नमेंट ज्यादा रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर करेगी तो ऑब्वियसली वो हमारी इकोनॉमी के लिए, हमारी इकोनॉमी की ग्रोथ के लिए इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग या इतना पॉजिटिव नहीं होता है. सो इट इज इम्पॉर्टेंट कि वी एम्फसाइज मोर एंड मोर अपॉन कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर ओनली इन टर्म्स ऑफ क्रिएटिंग मोर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स. So a steady growth of 6% to 7% can be ensured over the medium term. So we are expecting कि इस range के बीच में we can have the growth rate, and only if the fixed capital formation rate is raised by another 2 percentage point. So ये range हम तभी achieve कर सकते हैं अगर fixed capital formation का rate is increased by another 2 percentage points. So this is not withstanding the global factors that are not encouraging. So obviously global factors अभी economic growth के लिए they are not so encouraging, because globally we are seeing a slowdown. But at the same time we also think कि India में जो macroeconomic fundamentals है they are very strong. We are a resilient economy, and at the same time हमने ये भी बात करी है पहले कि अगर हमारा एक्सपोर्ट स्लो डाउन हो रहा है या ट्रेड सेक्टर में वी आर सीइंग अ स्लो डाउन, सो हमारे लिए और क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज है इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रमोटिंग मोर ऑफ ट्रेड, मोर ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट्स. सो उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में वी हैव ऑलरेडी सीन कि वी आर साइनिंग और वी आर गोइंग इनटू मोर ऑफ साइनिंग द फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट. सो बायलैटरल लेवल पे फिर कोऑपरेटिंग विद कंट्रीज. एंड एक और हमने पॉइंट बात किया था कि साउथ ईस्ट एशियन इकोनॉमीज के साथ वी कैन have good trade, वहां पे बहुत ज्यादा potential है, so that can be leveraged. So we are seeing कि Europe picks up more arms even as the global weapon imports drop. So Ukraine was the world's third largest importer of arms in 2022. So India was the largest one. ये हमने कल ही देखा था. So weapon sales are charged. So the charts, they are sourced from the सिपरी रिपोर्ट. ये कल सिपरी रिपोर्ट में हमने कल देखा था, which is Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Report is titled as Trends in the International Arms Transfer 2022. So यहाँ पे सारी यूरोपियन इकोनॉमीज के लिए ग्राफ इज शोइंग कि क्या ट्रेंड रहा है एज फार एज दी आर्म्स इंपोर्ट्स इज कंसर्न्ड. सो लिथुआनिया, स्वीडन, जर्मनी, Belgium, Romania, France. France में it is so sharply it is increased. Belgium में again we are seeing कि सब में it is almost increasing at a very sharper rate. So chart, this second chart is it is showing that the region-wide share of the arms imports in the last 5 years period. So last to 5 year periods के data they've been presented here. So while the Europe's share in the global volume of the arms transfers, that is increased significantly, share of West Asia, Americas, and Asia and Oceania, they have decreased marginally in the last 5 years. But Europe के case में it has only increased. So 2013 से 17 में यूरोप का था 11% एंड नाउ 2018 से 22 में इट हैज इंक्रीज टू 16%. बाकी कंट्रीज या बाकी कॉन्टिनेंट्स या रीजन्स का यू कैन सी इट हैज डिक्लाइन 32 से 31 हुआ फॉर वेस्ट एशिया. एशियन ओशिनिया का 42% से 41%. हाउएवर एक परसेंट का ही फॉल हुआ है, बट स्टिल यूरोप का इट इज इंक्रीज बाय 5%. अफ्रीका में इट वाज 8%, अब इट इज एट 5%. And Americas में earlier it was 7%, now it is decreased to 5.8%. So why is WhatsApp threatening to leave UK? We'll just go through this in short. And so let's see the gist. So during a visit to the UK last week, WhatsApp had it said that the WhatsApp would not comply with the country's proposed online safety bill, which will in effect outlaw the end-to-end encryption. So end-to-end encryption का पता होना आपको it is important यहाँ पे. And apart from that, जो न्यू ऑनलाइन सेफ्टी बिल आ रहा है उसको बेसिकली उसमें कुछ ऐसा फीचर होगा कि विच इज नॉट अलाउइंग एंड टू एंड एनक्रिप्शन. सो दैट्स व्हाई व्हाट्सएप इज सेइंग ही विल बी मूविंग आउट ऑफ यूके. सो एंड टू एंड एनक्रिप्शन इट इंश्योर्स कि जो मैसेज हैं दे कैन ओनली बी डिक्रिप्टेड बाय द इंटेंडेड रेसिपिएंट using a secure decryption key that is unique to each sender recipient pair and to each of their messages. So basically end-to-end encryption is important in terms of data safety and security. So if platforms they do not comply, they may face penalties of up to 18 million pound or 10% of the platform's global revenue the preceding accounting year. So ये कुछ rules हैं and reasons है why WhatsApp is saying कि it would exit from UK. So why do landfills they catch fire during summers? Obviously it is very clear क्यों वहाँ पे fire होती होगी, but उसके जो negative. So as we were saying कि landfills में fires क्यों होती है during summers. So how should a municipality respond if a landfill does catch a fire? So उसको contain करने का क्या कोई already पहले plan होता है या नहीं? And what are some of the permanent solutions? So permanent solution क्या है इस problem के लिए of landfills? Delhi में भी they are increasing. Kochi का incident की वजह से this topic is in news. So Kochi landfill, as it is mentioning कि the site around Brahmapuram, it caught fire earlier this month. It is a stark reminder कि Indian cities they need to be prepared for more such incidents as summer is approaching. So preventing such fires requires long-term measures, which includes thorough and sustained interventions from the municipalities. So how do they actually catch fire? So Indian municipalities, they have been collecting more than 95% of the waste generated in cities, but the efficiency of waste processing is only 30 to 40% at best. So ये एक एरिया है जहाँ पे हमें काम करने की जरूरत है when we are talking about waste processing. So यहाँ पे waste to energy plant भी एक solution हो सकता है. So we'll be looking at that. But this is one area जहाँ पे we need to increase the waste processing thing. क्योंकि अभी we are only waste processing की अगर हम बात करें that is only at 30 to 40% at best. So municipal solid waste, it consists of about 60% of biodegradable material and 25% is non-biodegradable material, 15% is inert material like silt and stone. And municipalities, they are expected to process the wet and dry waste separately and to have the recovered byproducts recycled. So biodegradable material को तो process करने में इतनी कोई problem नहीं आनी चाहिए and 60% is biodegradable material. So चाहे बेसिकली वर्मी कंपोस्टिंग की हम बात करें, इट कैन बी यूज देयर, इट कैन बी कन्वर्टेड इनटू मैन्योर जो कि हमें एग्रीकल्चर में हेल्प कर सकते हैं. एंड एग्रीकल्चर में भी एज वी आर सीइंग कि नाउ फार्मर्स दे आर रियलाइजिंग कि व्हाट इज द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ नेचुरल फार्मिंग, व्हाट इज द इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ यूजिंग less of fertilizers and pesticides and more of organic farming, more of zero-based budget farming, using more of natural fertilizers. So this thing can be connected and how it can be recycled and reutilized. So rate of processing in the Indian cities is far lower than the rate of waste generation. So यहाँ पे हम smart cities की भी जैसे बात करते हैं तो smart cities में भी this element can be included. सो जो रेट ऑफ प्रोसेसिंग है उसको इंक्रीज करना, प्लान सिटीज की हम बात करते हैं। सो डिस्पोजल साइट्स कहाँ होंगी, उनका प्रॉपर प्लान होना, आसपास में क्या कंस्ट्रक्शन होनी चाहिए, क्या घर होने चाहिए, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली देयर इज फाउल स्मेल, जो भी गैसेस रिलीज होती है फ्रॉम दीज लैंडफिल साइट्स, उसकी वजह से बहुत डिजीजेस भी होते हैं, एंड देन ऑल्सो इट लीड्स टू वाटर पोल्यूशन। सो ये सारी चीजें स्मार्ट सिटीज में एक ये एलिमेंट होना चाहिए। And this openly disposed waste includes flammable material like low quality plastics जिनमें बहुत easily आग लग जाती है, they easily catch fire, which have a relatively high calorific value of about 2500 to 3000 kilocalories per kg, and rags होते हैं, clothes होते हैं। So एक बार fire start हो जाती है तो obviously it spreads and उसको contain करना एक task है। So in summers obviously temperature वैसे ही वी आर सीइंग कि नॉर्मल से अबव टेम्परेचर चल रहा है राइट नाउ, केरला में इट इज क्रॉसिंग 40 डिग्री सेल्सियस अभी से पहले। सो इमेजिन व्हाट वुड बी द सिचुएशन इन मे। सो समर्स में बायोडिग्रेडेबल फ्रैक्शन कंपोस्ट दे मच फास्टर एंड इंक्रीजिंग द टेम्परेचर ऑफ द हीप टू बियॉन्ड 70 to 80 डिग्री सेल्सियस टेम्परेचर हो जाता है समर्स में, बिकॉज जब बायोडिग्रेडेबल जो पोर्शन है ऑफ द वेस्ट वो कंपोस्ट मच फास्टर होता है, उसकी वजह से टेम्परेचर इंक्रीज हो जाता है, and higher temperature coupled with flammable materials, that is a perfect situation for a landfill to catch fire. So इसकी वजह से फायर्स बहुत इजीली हो जाती है इन लैंडफिल। सो जब हम बायोडिग्रेडेबल वेस्ट की भी बात करते हैं तो यहाँ पे एक सेपरेशन ऑफ वेस्ट इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट स्टेप, कि बायोडिग्रेडेबल वेस्ट को आप बिल्कुल सेपरेट कर दो, एंड इट इज नॉट इम्पॉर्टेंट कि आप उनको लैंडफिल साइट्स में डंप कर दो। उसका solutions I've already told you, waste to energy plants में it can be utilized, it can be used in vermicompost, उससे बहुत larger amount of we can generate manure। एंड तो क्या इस सिचुएशन का कोई परमानेंट सोल्यूशन है या नहीं? So there are two possible permanent solutions to manage the landfill fires. First solution is completely cap the material using the soil and close the landfills in a scientific manner. So ये एक साइंस के पर्सपेक्टिव से वी आर सीइंग कि जो भी लैंडफिल साइट्स हैं कुछ आप वहां पे डंप करो, उसके बाद उसको सॉइल से कवर कर दो, एंड लैंडफिल्स को भी क्लोज करो इन अ साइंटिफिक मैनर। सो साइंटिफिक टेक्निक्स हम यूटिलाइज कर सकते हैं, एंड दिस सोल्यूशन इज अनसूटेबल इन द इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट, क्योंकि एज द लैंड गेट्स बिकॉज लैंड कांट बी यूज्ड अगेन फॉर अदर पर्पस, and closed landfills they have specific standard operating procedures including managing the methane emissions also. सो इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में इतना ज़्यादा फीजिबल नहीं है ये सोल्यूशन, क्योंकि वो लैंड को फिर आप किसी और पर्पस के लिए आगे यूज नहीं कर सकते हो, एंड क्लोज लैंडफिल्स मेंटेन करने का भी एक प्रॉपर स्टैंडिंग ऑपरेटिंग प्रोसीजर है, जैसे कि उसमें मीथेन एमिशंस को आप कैसे मैनेज करोगे, कैसे उसको कैप्चर करोगे। सो वो सारी चीजें इंपॉर्टेंट है मेंटेन करना। सो सेकंड सोल्यूशन पे आते हुए इट इज क्लियर कि piles of waste through bioremediation. So bioremediation is the second permanent solution. So here excavating the old waste and use the automated swing machines to segregate the flammable reuse derived fuel. रिफ्यूज डिराइव्ड फ्लेमेबल रिफ्यूज डिराइव्ड फ्यूल, जिसमें वी हैव ऑलरेडी टॉक प्लास्टिक्स है, रैग्स है, क्लोथ्स आते हैं फ्रॉम द बायोडिग्रेडेबल मटेरियल। सो सेपरेशन ऑफ वेस्ट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इनटू बायोडिग्रेडेबल एंड नॉन बायोडिग्रेडेबल, एंड जो मेडिकल वेस्ट होता है उसको सेपरेट करना। सो ऑल दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। So the recovered RDF it can be sent to the cement kilns as fuel. So even cement sector में, cement manufacturing में it can act as fuel. Manure की हम बात कर चुके हैं। So biosol can be distributed to the farmers to enrich the soil. So this we've already talked, and inert fraction will have to be landfill. So जो inert portion होगा वो landfill में dump किया जाएगा, and however, implementing a bioremediation project usually takes up to 2 to 3 years, necessitating a short-term solution for summertime landfill fires. So even obviously it is a time-taking step. हम permanent solution की बात कर रहे हैं तो within days ये possible नहीं है, but इसका भी पूरा proper plan होना चाहिए. But at least अगर हमारे पास permanent solution है तो we need to start working upon that. So what are some immediate measures जो हमें लेने चाहिए as we talk about containing the landfills fire? So landfill sites they span up to 20 to 30 acres and they have different kind of waste. Obviously waste is mixed, uski wajah se there is fire. So first immediate action is to divide a site into blocks depending on the nature of the waste. So अगेन यहाँ पे वेस्ट सेपरेशन की बात हो रही है, एंड at each site, blocks with fresh waste, they should be separated from the blocks with the flammable material. So blocks भी जो flammable material वाला block है उसको थोड़ा और separate होना चाहिए. Blocks that have been capped using soil, they are less likely to catch fire. So portions like these, they should be separated out. So blocks में separate करके waste segregation करके जहाँ पे आप soil से cap करोगे waste को, वो obviously उसमें कम chances of catching fire. So that's how landfill sites को भी एक manage करने का proper plan होना चाहिए. ये नहीं कि एक जगह बस आप कूड़ा इकट्ठा किए जा रहे हो. And the different blocks, they should ideally be separated using a drain or soil bund, and a layer of soil should cap each of the blocks. So this reduces the chance of fire spreading across the blocks. And so cement kilns mein they can be utilized, agriculture sector mein they can be utilized, and dry gas material and dry trees from the sites, they should also be cleared immediately. So biodegradable waste को तो वहाँ पे हमें रखने का कोई point ही नहीं है, उसकी वजह से ही fires are there in the landfills site. So waste processing system, systematic waste processing system होना चाहिए जहाँ पे wet and dry waste, they are processed separately, and their byproducts, they are treated accordingly. So that's how there needs to be a proper scientific plan जब हम landfill sites के management की भी बात कर रहे हैं. So RBI has permitted banks from 18 countries to trade in rupee as per the central government. So central bank granted note to the domestic and the foreign authorized dealers, banks in 60 cases for opening special Vostro accounts for settling the payment in rupee. And वॉस्ट्रो अकाउंट्स के वर्किंग के बारे में, कैसे आप वॉस्ट्रो अकाउंट्स को ओपन करते हैं, कैसे वो फंक्शन करते हैं, एंड कैसे वो रुपी बेस्ड ट्रेड को प्रमोट करने में हेल्प करेंगे. सो ये हम डिटेल में वी हैव डिस्कस दिस थिंग बिफोर, सो विल नॉट बी टेकिंग अप दिस थिंग अगेन. एंड अभी वी आर फोकसिंग अपॉन रशिया के साथ वी आर फोकसिंग ऑन द रुपी बेस्ड ट्रेड विच वुड बी हेल्पिंग फर्दर हेल्पिंग इन इंटरनेशनलाइजेशन ऑफ रुपी, जिसकी वजह से आर डिपेंडेंस अपॉन डॉलर यूसेज वुड रिड्यूस, एंड दैट्स हाउ हम जो रिस्क होता है दैट वुड बी रिड्यूस्ड. So OBC panel does not have caste census data, says the government. So this commission was formed in 2017 by the Union Social Justice Ministry to subcategorize nearly 13,000 caste groups that are currently listed as other backward classes on the central list. So there has to be a study on the socio-economic indicators and on the levels of discrimination that are faced by these caste groups. So iski pehle study hona is important before you go ahead in terms of categorizing these 3,000 caste groups. So women empowerment, we are seeing Surekha, she is the first woman to operate a Vande Bharat train. So women definitely koi bhi field ki aap baat karo, they are taking the lead. Coming to the world page, so Taiwan, it unveils a portable attack drone as tensions with China rise. So जैसे कि रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर की हम बात करते हैं, तो वी आर सीइंग कि रशिया और चाइना एंड ताइवान के बीच में भी इट कैन बी द नेक्स्ट हॉटस्पॉट जब हम टेंशंस की बात करते हैं. एंड इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन ऑलवेज वो पहले ही इतना वॉलेटाइल है एंड चीज़ें वहाँ इतनी अनसर्टेन है कि दिस इज डेफिनेटली एक एरिया है जहाँ पे फ्यूचर में टेंशंस कैन ग्रो. So Australia is going to buy the US nuclear submarines under AUKUS. इस टॉपिक के बारे में भी हम पहले बात कर चुके हैं. So AUKUS में there are 3 countries, Australia, UK and US. So Australia buy करने वाला है nuclear submarine न्यूक्लियर सबमरीन्स फ्रॉम यूएस, एंड ये अभी हम देख चुके हैं कि कौन सी ऐसी कंट्रीज है विच आर ऑलरेडी इक्विप्ड विद न्यूक्लियर सबमरीन्स, एंड इंडिया इज डेफिनेटली वन ऑफ देम. एंड चाइना का भी सेम स्टेटमेंट रिगार्डिंग ऑकस. इट सेज कि ऑकस डील इज गोइंग डाउन द रॉन्ग एंड डेंजरस पाथ. So expressing its firm opposition on this regarding this announcement of Australia regarding purchase of these nuclear powered submarines, China's government said it slammed AUKUS partnership as going down the wrong and dangerous path and underlining international nuclear non-proliferation. So China opens its borders to tourists after 3 years of restrictions brought about by the pandemic. So China's economy is reopening. Wholesale price index inflation, it eases to 3.85%. Manufactured products, they help. So manufacturing products में we are seeing कि inflation is coming down and WPI inflation कम होती हुई दिखाई दे रही है. This is well within the safety जो tolerance band है of inflation, but core inflation is still sticky. वो कम होने का नाम नहीं ले रही है. And February's deceleration in the wholesale price gains follows January's rate of 4.73%. So January May it was this much, Feb May it has reduced, and December May it was upwardly revised at 5%. So base effect also contributes, as Feb 2022 had seen inflation of 13.4%. So this is previous year ke Feb May it was so high. So wholesale easing we are seeing, but मेन कंसर्न हमारे लिए कोर इन्फ्लेशन है, वो भी कम होना इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, बिकॉज आरबीआई एंडलेसली रेपो रेट इंक्रीज नहीं कर सकता है. सो द सिलिकॉन वैली बैंक का जो फेलियर हुआ उसकी वजह से वी आर सीइंग शॉकवेव्स, इट रैटल्स द ग्लोबल बैंक्स. डेफिनेटली एक फियर आ गया लोगों के माइंड में रिगार्डिंग बिकॉज ऑफ दिस बैंक्स फेलियर, कि अगर दिस बैंक कैन फेल सो इसका बाकी बैंक्स की क्या हेल्थ है. सो वो असेसमेंट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एंड क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा. बट एसबीबी बैंक में जैसे हमने बात किया कि मेजर क्लाइंट उनकी स्टार्टअप्स ही है, सो स्टार्टअप्स पे क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा एंड इंडियन स्टार्टअप्स पे कितना इम्पैक्ट होगा. सो इंडियन स्टार्टअप्स की अगर हम बात करें तो इतना ज़्यादा इम्पैक्ट नहीं है ऑन इंडियन स्टार्टअप्स, क्योंकि कुछ रिस्ट्रिक्टेड स्टार्टअप्स है जिनका एक्सपोजर है. एंड देन द थिंग कम्स इन कि आपके पास डिपॉजिट इंश्योरेंस भी एक चीज़ है. सो दैट इज यूएसए में इट इज़ एट $250,000 एंड इंडिया में इट इज एट ₹5 लाख. सो अगर आपके पास सपोज आपने बैंक में ₹4 लाख डिपॉजिट करा रखे हैं एंड वो बैंक फेल हो जाता है, तो बिकॉज ऑफ दैट डिपॉजिट इंश्योरेंस आपको अपने 4 लाख पूरे वापस मिल जाएंगे. बट अगर किसी ने सपोज 5 लाख से ज्यादा पैसा डिपॉजिट करा रखा है तो आपको 5 लाख तो मिल जाएंगे, बट बाकी के लिए यू विल हैव टू वेट, क्योंकि ओनली 5 लाख इज इंश्योर्ड. एंड जैसे कि हमने बात करी थी कल, मैंने आपको बताया था कि एक न्यूज चल रही थी ऑफ एसएसबीसी बैंक की they are thinking of buying the SVB bank. So resolution of SVB is it is going to bring relief to startups. So amid the US administration's move to backstop the collapsed SVB deposits, Indian IT minister has said कि developments they are reassuring and it will bring relief to startups. So deal चल रही है अभी, it is not yet finalized कि who will be buying the SVB bank. First semiconductor fab to be announced in few weeks. So India is poised for a vibrant chip industry in next 3 to 4 years on the back of enabling policies and government's firm commitment towards growing manufacturing ecosystem. Today, 99% of the mobile phones used in India, they are made in India. So this is a stark contrast to the situation 10 साल पहले अगर हम देखें, जहाँ पे सिर्फ 100 मोबाइल फोन्स as much as 99% इंडिया इंपोर्ट कर रहा था. बट आज 10 साल के बाद सिचुएशन इज कम्प्लीटली द ऑपोजिट. वी आर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग देम इन इंडिया. So India is also set to plan new security testing for smartphones, and the new rules, details of which they have not been previously reported, they could extend the introduction timelines in the world's numbers to smartphone market and lead to losses in the businesses from pre-installed applications for the players including Samsung, Xiaomi, Vivo, and Apple. So concerns regarding spying है, so इसकी वजह से will be coming up with the new security testing for the smartphones. And इस context में जब हम security की बात करते हैं तो हमेशा ये बात की जाती है कि चाइना जो चिप्स हमें भेजता है उसकी वजह से security can be compromised. So energy transition is the top priority for 73% of the firms. So energy transition, maybe we are talking about transition towards green energy, clean energy. So यहाँ पे हमें targets पता होना चाहिए जो इंडिया ने target set किए हैं. So that's there. Coming to Mint, so breaking down India's February inflation data. CPI inflation, it eased, but sequential price momentum, it stayed positive. CPI inflation बहुत marginal amount से कम हुई है. You can see कि इतना fall नहीं आया, बहुत कम ही fall आया compared to the figures in January 2023. But momentum is still positive, so उसकी वजह से this is one concern. And majorly food inflation that has been driving the CPI inflation. So opposing forces, they are keeping inflation from rising or declining sharply. So दोनों side we are seeing कि opposing forces हैं जिसकी वजह से ज़्यादा movement हमें inflation में देखने को नहीं मिल रहा है. So cereal and products, different products and vegetables, they are basically opposing. They are at the opposite ends, we can say. So vegetables may we are seeing that it is declining. Cereals and products may inflation is increasing too much. And cereals में particularly wheat inflation बहुत high चल रही है. So उसकी वजह से this is putting an upward pressure upon inflation. And vegetables में prices are cooling down. So वो inflation को नीचे drag down करने की कोशिश कर रहा है. But since आप देख सकते हो दोनों opposite direction में they are working. So इसलिए inflation इतना ज़्यादा move नहीं कर रही है. So fuel and fury, so LPG prices hike हुई थी, so उसकी वजह से it can be one of the reasons जिसकी वजह से CPI increase हुई है. कुछ factor तो रही है of increase of the LPG price. And right now, price of the non-subsidized 14.2 kg LPG cylinder in Delhi, it is costing you around rupees 1100 for one cylinder. And talking about the trend reversal, so trend reversal in what? So core CPI inflation that is sticky, आप देख सकते हो core CPI inflation में कितनी fluctuation, बहुत ही minute fluctuation हुई है या फिर आप almost straight line आपको देखने को मिल रही है. So right now level is at 6.2%. So WPI manufactured इन्फ्लेशन आप देख सकते हो कितना शार्प फॉल आया है, उसके बाद भी थोड़ा सा भी हमें फॉल देखने को नहीं मिल रहा है सीपीआई कोर इन्फ्लेशन. सो इट इज शोइंग कि कितनी ज्यादा इनइलास्टिक है सीपीआई कोर इन्फ्लेशन एंड ये कम करना इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सो सीपीआई कोर में फूड और फ्यूल प्राइसेस हम काउंट नहीं करते हैं. सो उसकी वजह से वी आर सीइंग कि सीपीआई कोर में इतना ज्यादा हमें चेंज भी देखने को नहीं मिल रहा है. बट इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट कि अगर हमें टाइट मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी वी नीड टू स्टॉप दिस थिंग. सो सबसे पहले वी नीड टू सी कि इन्फ्लेशन कम भी होनी चाहिए, उसके बाद ही वी कैन स्टॉप. क्योंकि अगर रेपो रेट इंक्रीज के बाद ये सिचुएशन है, सो यू कैन इमेजिन कि अगर रेपो रेट कम करने लग जाएंगे तो इन्फ्लेशन कहाँ तक जा सकती है. And big leap, that is inflation is set to overshoot RBI's Q4 forecast due to high January and February levels of CPI inflation जो हमने record करी है. So quarterly CPI inflation March 2023 it is expected. RBI का जो target है of Q4 that is 6.5%, but we are expecting कि इसको भी cross कर सकते हैं. So चीजें worse ही होती जा रही है. And as we talk about the inflation front, coming to Indian Express, Reserve Bank's integrated ombudsman scheme. So it is a single window for your resolution of all complaints against RBI's regulated entities. And complaints that are not resolved within 30 days or not, they are resolved satisfactorily by the banks, NBFCs, or system participants regulated by RBI, they can be lodged with the ombudsman. एंड अगर आपकी 30 days हो गए एंड आपकी जो डिस्प्यूट है जो ग्रीवेंस है वो भी रिजॉल्व नहीं हुई है, सो यू कैन लॉज योर कंप्लेंट विद द ओम्बड्समैन. सो ऑल कंप्लेंट्स रिगार्डिंग द डेफिशिएंसी इन द सर्विसेज कवर्ड एंड एक्सेप्ट दोज इन द एक्सक्लूजन लिस्ट. सो कुछ एक्सक्लूजन लिस्ट भी है and lodge complaints online. So आप इस website पे जाके you can lodge your complaints, and you can also track the status of your complaints on the complaint management system. So next generation missile vessels to radars, government on local shopping spree for the armed forces. So promoting Atmanirbhar Bharat, and orders, they are likely to be placed before the end of this financial year. So we are not depending upon imports of the arms, as far as we are basically trying कि हम अपने imports कम कर सके and self reliance increase कर सके in terms of manufacturing arms. So Indian Army की बात करें तो EW system for mountains and dedicated communication satellites होने वाली है. Air defense control and reporting system होगा Indian Air Force में, medium and high power radars, and 6 Dornier 228 aircrafts होने वाले हैं. Indian Navy में fleet support ships, next generation offshore patrol vessels, next generation missile vessels, next generation maritime mobile coastal batteries with the BrahMos missiles. So you need to find out more about Cabinet Committee on Security. Apart from that, moving forward, so an untold Kashmir story, artifacts, they are not traced, and FIRs, they are gathering justice. So action nahi liya ja raha on such FIRs. As many as 94 artifacts in USA's museum, they have a trail going back to Jammu and Kashmir, jahan pe authorities, they have made little headway in probe into the missing artifacts. So Saraswati painting Jammu Kashmir mein hai, and it is found in USA. It is still sitting there for 6 years. 6 साल हो चुके हैं, कोई एक्शन नहीं लिया गया है. So this is the Saraswati painting, goddess Saraswati, and Rasika's painting, जो कि USA में है. And in this picture, this is the ruins of temple in Avantipura in Pulwama district of Jammu and Kashmir. So World's Consumer Rights Day celebrated on 15th of March. So here it is from the Bureau of Indian Standards. So it is celebrating this thing. So the Bureau of Indian Standards youth volunteers Manak Mitra, they will soon visit your home to share the information about the BIS activities and the initiatives. So let's stand for quality together. Bureau of Indian Standards, which is under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. So they're having a Quality Connect campaign. So यहाँ पे it is all political news. So look at artificial intelligence and not ChatGPT. So artificial intelligence must first overcome the limitations of human intelligence. So few of us, they have paid attention to the fact that the first alert of the mysterious new virus out of the Wuhan or China, it came through artificial intelligence. So data scrapping systems raised a red flag before the humans at the WHO got wind of the impending disaster. And at the other end, the search for a vaccine was accelerated by algorithms. Then artificial intelligence was key to determining clinical trial sites and analyzing the vast amounts of trial data. So basically हम यहाँ ये बात कर रहे हैं कि COVID-19 से भी आप कैसे artificial intelligence को connect किया हमने and how we utilized it. So in the thick of the pandemic, there were scores of artificial intelligence experiments to diagnose COVID from symptoms, but those attempts, while noble in intent, they have failed. So meanwhile, if you ask most people today if there was a connection between artificial intelligence and the beginning and end of the acute pandemic, you will probably get a blank stare. But यहाँ पे हमने बात करी कि कैसे in terms of vaccination, in terms of testing and experiments to diagnose the COVID from symptoms, कैसे we have used artificial intelligence. So it is time कि जब हम ethical element की बात करते हैं in artificial intelligence, that needs to be taken into consideration, and we need to apply it more intelligence to how to direct money, talent, data access, and regulatory and ethical resources so that we end up with less demon, more God, and usher in a technology that can set the world on fire. And if we aren't careful, so this can burn us all down. So obviously artificial intelligence का misuse भी बहुत dangerous हो सकता है हमारे लिए. So it is important कि we responsibly use it. So India and Italy, they are deepening their ties, acting together on the global issues. So Italy intends to offer full support to Indian presidency of G20. One of the ways it will do so is by contributing around the issues that were at the center of Italy's G20 presidency in 2021. So on the 75th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between Italy and India, the summit on 2nd March of this year between Italian Prime Minister and Indian Prime Minister marked a turning point in relations between our two countries. So we saw elevation of bilateral relations to strategic partnership. It has been established for the first time. And in the recent years, we've already intensified the collaboration, bringing bilateral trade to a record figure of around 15 billion euros. And this is double from the amount of 2020. And talking about well-defined range of priorities, so energy transition, food processing, advanced manufacturing, and the creative industry and infrastructure for various kinds. So in recent years, Italy has joined all the multilateral initiatives which are promoted by India, be it the Indian Ocean Rim Association, to Coalition for Disaster Relief Infrastructure, to International Solar Alliance. So we have also furthered enhanced our collaboration in the cultural field on the heritage front, as well as in the creative industry like fashion, design, cinema. And in scientific research and technology, the partnership between two countries has registered the launch of 13 new joint projects. So in terms of mobility, we have witnessed a significant increase in the flow of Indian students and workers in Italy. Apart from that, in the health sector, during the pandemic, two countries, they have collaborated since the beginning with the exchange of the experiences and practices with humanitarian initiatives. And joint declaration, it approved in the last summit, it affirms the commitment of two governments to develop a strategic partnership that is going to focus on sectors such as defense, cybersecurity, space, and energy. So we are having a common vision for an Indo-Pacific based on the respect of international law, freedom of navigation, and territorial integrity. So all these are keywords and very important. So link between the two areas will become increasingly substantiated in the fields of maritime and digital connectivity and security. So finally, Italy intends to offer full support to India's presidency of G20. And on Ukraine, while our country reiterates its strong condemnation of the unlawful Russia's aggression, Italy and India, they will be engaged in trying to find a cessation of this conflict. So in these very challenging times, our two countries, they intend to give a strong impulse to their relations, united by a millenary tradition of exchanges linked by the common recognition of the value of true friendship and solidarity. So there's going to be next IPCC meet in Switzerland, and let's see what would be the outcome. So here it is talking about the collapse of the SVB bank. So we've already discussed this topic in detail a lot कि क्यों बैंक फेल हुआ, क्या रीजन था, एंड इंडिया पे क्या कोई इम्पैक्ट हुआ है. वी हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट दिस डिपॉजिट इंश्योरेंस कॉर्पोरेशन, जो फेडरल डिपॉजिट इंश्योरेंस कॉर्पोरेशन है, एंड इंडिया में कितना अमाउंट ऑफ इंश्योरेंस प्रोवाइड किया जाता है. Apart from that, government का क्या role है? So India में Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology held a meeting with the affected startups. So as we know, key startups are the main clients of SVB Bank. So Indian Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology ने meeting held करी है with the startups so that they can basically जो भी liquidity issues उनको face करने पड़ रहे because of the bank's failure, उसको कोई solution निकाला जा सके. And IT Ministry is likely to emphasize the need to devise a plan on how RBI can get the domestic banks to offer loans to these startups. So second जो safer option है कि कैसे RBI can help in offering loans to the startups in India. So IT Ministry is also expected to recommend exploring the option of startups being allowed to transfer money from their SVB accounts to the Indian banks without facing taxation issues. And basically, Indian startups के लिए our ministry is stepping in. So यहाँ पे basically different countries का example देते हुए we are talking about legalization of the same sex marriage. So क्या court ने allow किया है या parliament ने allow किया उन countries में? So that is to be seen. सो वी सी की बैड लोन्स तो कम हुए हैं बट विलफुल डिफॉल्ट अकाउंट्स इंक्रीज हुए हैं कि आप पे बैक कर सकते हो बट स्टिल विलफुली आउट ऑफ योर ओन विल आपने पैसा पे नहीं किया है बट बैड लोन्स कम हुए हैं. सो देयर हैज बीन अ राइज ऑफ 38.5% इन द विलफुल डिफॉल्ट्स. सो ये एक कॉज ऑफ कंसर्न है, हमें इस चीज को एड्रेस करने की जरूरत है. बट एनपीएस डेफिनेटली कम हुए हैं विच इज नॉन परफॉर्मिंग एसेट्स. And RBI may keep the rate unchanged in April as inflation eases. थोड़ी सी inflation कम हुई है marginal level पे, but we expect कि this is from the Economic Bureau कि rate unchanged हो सकता है in April जो upcoming MPC meeting होने वाली है. So all this we've already discussed, and thank you so much for joining in Sarkari. I hope you've understood everything well, and you'll also getting a PDF link in the description box. So that is also very important to revisit from the perspective of revision. Apart from that, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button for this video if you're following us every day. Do not forget to share it as well. So thank you so much for joining us for today.